So, Mike the cop, and probably a lot of other cops who upload videos, claim to support the Constitution, but they make videos displaying how they deliberately choose to violate the Constitution. And no one seems to get this, and it's so self-incriminating that it's kind of silly. So I had to do a video on it. What I'm going to be pointing out is so self-evident and so obvious that it really makes you wonder what's going on. So the point is Mike a part of the executive branch of government? Of course he is. That's what copies are. You get pulled over. All my examples here are going to relate to traffic because everyone has to deal with traffic tickets. It's the easiest subject to approach with most people. And it's so easy to show where all the fraud and where all the defects and where all the mess is that it makes it extra fun to point out all the fraud and all the mess. So Mike did a video about how to not get a ticket or something along these lines. I'll have a visual on the screen right now of the video that he uploaded relating to how not to get a ticket. The idea being, when you're getting pulled over along the side of the road by a copy, what is happening? Apparently, according to Mike and according to lots of cops, they have the option to not give you a ticket. They have an option to not give you a ticket. So let's see. Legislators come up with these laws that we're supposed to follow in the VTL, and we get our licenses, and yet there's all this discretion on the side of the road about whether a police officer is going to give you a ticket or not. In other words, are these laws or aren't they? And if the law has been broken, doesn't a police officer have a duty to do something about it? Or can he just arbitrarily decide, no, I'm not going to do anything about it? Well, apparently, the latter is exactly what goes on. If you lick the boots extra moist and shiny, you won't get a ticket. However, if you begin to give any indication that you're going to exercise any kind of due process rights, you're in big trouble. Especially if you happen to be someone who sounds even a little bit like one of those, quote, sovereign citizens, then you're definitely going to get a ticket. Why? Because he doesn't like you. Isn't that interesting how police officers can decide on the side of the road whether or not they are going to carry out the law or not? If they don't like you, you get a ticket. Now, is that how the law is supposed to work? If it's that readily biased and the person can simply make a judgment, quote, along the side of the road as to whether or not you're guilty, perhaps, carrying out the judicial branch's job, then they will or will not give you a ticket. So, the officer gives you this ticket, and what do you ask him? You study the law books a little bit, and they're not too hard to understand. They're a little tricky. Some of that legal speak is a little silly, but it's not that hard if you buckle down and study. And you say, what is this piece of paper here? And he says, well, it's a ticket. And you're like, okay, it's a ticket. Is it a ticket to the next Weird Al Yankovic concert? Is it a ticket to a Vegas show? I love Vegas shows. Well, no, it's a traffic ticket. Well, what's a traffic ticket? So the copy says, well, that's an invitation into court. Oh, you're inviting me into court. No, I'll decline. I would rather not do that. Well, the officer will say, you don't have any choice. I just gave you a ticket, so you have to come into court. Oh, so is this ticket a summons into court? Is that what you're saying? The copy says, yes, it is. It's a summons into court. Well, wait a minute. So if it's a summons into court, this must be a civil issue, right? It's not criminal. I mean, I didn't hurt anybody. So if this ticket here is a summons of some sort, then obviously a summons applies to a civil matter. So when I glided through that stop sign at 1:30 in the morning while no one else was around and you gave me this, quote, summons, I must have somehow damaged you, right? And if I damaged you, then how did I damage you? I don't see any damages anywhere, and you haven't told me about any damages or given me any kind of notice about damages. Or is this a contractual matter where I'm in breach of some sort of contract? And if so, where's the contract so I can see it and read it? And so then are you also if this is a summons, are you the process server? And how does that work? And are we going to go into this court where I'm going to plead guilty or not guilty? Never innocent or not innocent, of course. It's always guilty or not guilty. And if so, then wait a minute, I thought this was a civil matter. Why am I all of a sudden in a criminal court, apparently being accused of a crime, being asked to plead guilty or not guilty? That seems a little bit like it's a fraud. And uh-oh. So you get the idea here. Now, if you ask any of these questions, it's likely to upset the copy. And if the copy gets upset, guess what? He is going to choose to give you a ticket. However, if you're a cute boy and he's a cute copy and you flirt with him and he likes that, he might decide, you know what? I don't care what the legislator says. I don't care about legislation. I don't care about legislators. I'm going to just say screw all those laws and I'm not going to give you no ticket because I can choose not to because I like you. And is that right? Is that a good idea? Or are we on the side of the road and he decides through his judicial discretion that maybe you're not guilty of anything at all and therefore doesn't give you the ticket, and this goes on and on and on. Of course, if you're talking about due process at all or questioning him, you could come across as the, quote, dreaded sovereign citizen. Of course, he doesn't like sovereign citizens, so you're gonna get ticketed no matter what because he doesn't like you. However, if he likes you, you might not get a ticket, in which case breaching the separation of powers doctrine in the Constitution is something we can have fun with. So how do you support the Constitution and yet constantly breach it? If a person has broken the law, don't you have a duty and obligation to cite that person for breaking the law or arrest that person for breaking the law? And doesn't that person have a right to due process? If a person has broken the law, aren't you breaching their right to be able to exercise their right to due process? That's a fun one to think about. So thanks for watching, folks, and as always, have fun.